Hey, and welcome to Chew the Fat. We are on episode 4, and I'm really excited today because I barely know Aimee. I got to just back this train up. When I first came to town, I met Matthew Stepanaik, and he was like, there is this boss queen in town who has a really successful business, and you should get to know her. And it has taken me this long. So today is all about getting to know Aimee from Darn Knit. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yay! Okay, so I want to talk about your business and how you became so successful, but let's start. Where are you from? Tell me a little bit about your childhood and your background.
Sure. So I am from North St. Paul.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not far down Highway 36. I
Okay.
graduated from North St. Paul High School.
Okay.
My paternal grandmother is actually who taught me to knit.
Oh,
And she was a 15th out of 16 kids born.
that is a lot of
a lot of kids born in London, England. So she was English.
Oh,
And she met my grandfather during World War II
wow.
and immigrated to America with him.
Wow.
And she was the only one of her siblings that came to America.
Wow.
Yeah, so her
The rest stayed in
rest stayed in England. Some
Wow.
went to Australia. There's a lot of them.
Okay.
So she was a knitter and taught me to knit. Taught a bunch of us to knit.
So
Actually,
even so when you were young,
Yeah.
like how old were you when you had an interest and you actually started?
so honestly, I didn't really have an interest.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, she just kind of was always knitting.
Yeah.
She knit sweaters and Christmas stockings for the family. So everybody who married into the family or new babies all got hand knit Christmas stockings from her. So that was a tradition. She just was a knitter. And
Yeah.
she was always, when she was sitting, she was knitting. And so when we were kids, middle school, she probably taught us for the first time. And then I
Like
was
said, you should learn this skill. This is an important thing.
just kind of, yes, put the stuff in our hands and
Yeah.
we sat and did it with her.
Yeah.
And I only really did it when I was with her. My mom didn't knit, so I didn't really have anybody else. So
Yeah.
it was just her. So when we went to visit her, we would knit with her. And then
Just kind of a cool way to spend time together.
it is a cool
'Cause
way.
You're not
Yeah.
like bored as a kid then. You're doing something.
It is a cool
Yeah.
way, but I was as interested as a middle schooler would be,
Of course.
you know,
Yeah.
interested for
Really thrilled.
Yeah, loving it. And then I went to Madison.
Okay.
I'm a Badger, a proud Badger, and I got a degree and a job and
What
a
did you
house.
study?
I studied interior design.
Okay.
I got an interior design degree,
Sweet.
and I got a job out of college at a commercial furniture dealership. And
Wow.
I worked there and I loved it. And I bought a home in Maplewood near her. And I would go see her a couple times a week because she fed me. And so I went to see her a few times in a week. And she's always knitting, of course. And then
Even then, so your entire memory of her, that was what she did.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. You could draw a picture of something and next week she would have it knit. Yeah, she was really remarkable.
Is it like my skill in knitting this sweater?
I don't believe you made that.
That is true. I did not completely. But I want to. I so bad wanted
Yeah.
to say, yes, I did that.
Yeah.
But she could do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, she
Wow.
made everything. And so I would go visit her and she would be knitting and she'd say, you really need to calm down. You need to sit, you need to knit, take some time. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm too busy. I've got too much going on. I'm
Yeah.
in my early 20s, just ramping up in my life. And I wasn't going to sit with my grandma and knit. And then one day she said, who's going to knit the Christmas stockings when I'm dead?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I said, fine, I will learn to knit. And so I learned to knit again then, like in my mid-20s. And then I really didn't become a knitter until I opened the yarn store, but I knew then how to knit. And I enjoyed it, and I sat
Yeah.
with her and did some things, and
Yeah.
but it wasn't something I really did until the yarn store. But
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it isn't just like to get really skilled. You have to put your time in and you have to really, I remember my mother was like, I want to make a gift for
Yeah.
her then. I think they might have even been engaged or early married. She's like, I'm going to knit him a sweater. And it was a
Yeah.
big deal.
yeah,
And my dad is a stocky fellow.
yeah,
And she knit him a sweater that would have probably fit a 6'10" foot like
Yeah.
basketball player, long arms. So he was like, and the arms are too, and it is not something that you can just go about lightly. You have to take some time, you have to learn. And so what transitioned you from like, okay, I kind of like this hobby, I have my own hustle, to like, I'm going to open a yarn store and make a life?
So, uh, so I never worked in retail. I never dreamt of owning a yarn store. It was never something I did. We shopped at yarn stores. My grandmother and I, we called her Nanny, so it's weird to call her my grandma, Nanny Jean. Nanny and I shopped in other yarn stores.
Like which ones?
Oh, there was one out in kind of Maple Grove area called the Yarn Cafe, and they had a cute little cafe attached, and they were lovely, and so we would go there. There's a yarn store in White Bear Lake
And they were
that's been there
busy.
forever.
They were busy and they
I mean,
stayed,
people were in there,
because
you
that's
know.
a one. And I'm really curious, once I start to learn about your business, it's
Yeah,
one thing. You're selling yarn. And it's,
yeah, yeah. I mean, do you want to go there right now? Do you
I
want to wait?
mean,
Okay,
yeah.
so yarn stores are they're so much more than just selling yarn.
Mm.
So just like you just mentioned, when somebody wants to make something for someone, it is a personal thing.
Mm.
So people come in when their best friend gets cancer and they want to learn to make a chemo cap for them,
Mm.
or when their daughter has finally gotten pregnant after like we hear all of these stories that
Mm.
connect us to our customers. And so yeah, we're selling yarn and needles and notions and bags and all of those things, but it is for sure just a community
Mm.
place. People, learn to knit there for sure. And then they get help. There's a mistake in a pattern, or they drop a stitch, and they come in and we talk to them while we fix it for
Oh, you
them.
figured out. Was
Yeah.
it that same way back then when you were going to yarn stores? Was it that
I
same
don't
community?
remember that. I don't remember being conscious of it. It
Mm.
probably was. I mean, there were people sitting in those yarn stores, so
Yeah.
it probably was. I didn't even think about that
Mm.
when I was going to open the business. That wasn't something I thought about,
Like building
honestly.
community was not
No,
your.
and I had my nanny Jean, like she helped me when I made a mistake, so I never
Mm.
thought about asking. I don't know. It really wasn't something. I didn't honestly think I'd be helping people fix a mistake or
Mm.
anything. I just thought I was going to sell yarn. Really, that's what I
Really?
thought. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back
Yeah.
then.
So I had my job in commercial furniture sales. I'd been there 15 years. By then, I
Mm.
was straight sales. So
Mm.
I, was earning my own living. I had a husband. We live in Somerset, Wisconsin. I had 2 kids. They were 2 and 3, or 3 and 4, something
Yeah.
like that at the time. And my company, well, first of all, I joined this women in networking group. I'm not a networker. It's not something I feel like I'm good at. But I joined this networking group to sell furniture because now I was straight commission sales and I had to bring it home.
100% commission.
Yeah,
Mama
100%.
don't sell,
No,
we don't get a check.
right. So,
Wow.
so I joined this women's networking group to kind of
Yeah.
to sell office furniture,
Yeah.
and not really knowing much about networking groups or anything.
Yeah.
And so I met all these amazing women, first of all, in this group. I never sold a stitch of furniture, nothing, not a chair, not a nothing.
So it wasn't super successful.
No, but
in
I
that
went
way.
every month. And one day I was wearing something I'd knit, and a woman who owns a brow threading studio said, "Did you make that?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she said, "Well, would you make me one?" And I said, "Well, you can have this one." And I gave it to her. And then she said, "Well, I have this brow waxing studio, and if you brought me some, I would sell them for you."
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, I'll bring you a dozen of them." So I brought her a dozen, and a couple days later she called and she's like, "They're gone. You need to."
How long did it take you to make a dozen of whatever that was?
Not very long, a week or something.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were
Handmade.
easy little things, just little.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she said, "They're sold. Can you make me more?" And I said, "I'm not interested in making more. I mean, if it takes me a couple hours to make something and you're selling it for $30, I got to buy
Yeah.
the yarn. I got to, it
Yeah.
just doesn't make financial sense." So I was like,
Yeah.
"That's really fun. Thank you so much for doing that, but it's not really what I'm interested in doing." But, it kind of that was interesting,
Mm.
and I still wasn't thinking about opening a yarn store or doing anything with it. It just was interesting. And anyway, so I was going to this group all the time, and I met a graphic artist who was a good friend, and a banker, and
Mm.
you know, a, an insurance agent and all of these women. And
All these little pieces that it would
yeah,
take to form a bit
yeah, that I didn't
interesting.
think about at the time
Mm.
or consider honestly, until I drove by the building
Mm.
one day. So my company was getting merged with another big office furniture dealership.
Mm.
And I was going to the new company, of course, because I was straight sales, commission
Yeah.
sales. I didn't cost them anything. And but it was in Egan and I'm in Somerset. And, it was a long way away. And my kids were little. And did I really want to do this with a whole nother company? And so I was commuting like 20,000 other cars a day did at the time, waiting for the bridge
Through
to get,
Stillwater, the
yep.
slow crawl. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I would look at the Brick Alley building, which is where my space is. And there was a beautiful formal dress shop in there. It was called Our Shop. And they sold, wedding dresses and beautiful gowns and stuff. And she always changed out her window. So when I was sitting waiting for the bridge, I would look at her windows and they were beautiful. And one day, it was gone. They were gone. They had moved further down Main Street, and there was a big for lease sign. And I just thought that could be a yarn store.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that place could be a yarn store.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I drove home and I said to my husband, what do you think about me trying to put a yarn store in that dress shop space? And I had never mentioned it, never talked about it.
This is out of the clear blue sky.
Yes, clear blue sky. And he said, well, you probably should write a business plan. And I said, what's a business plan?
Say what now?
And so I went to Office Max, as you do.
As one does.
And
All the
I
office solutions.
bought a disc that was how to write a business plan. And I loaded it in my computer and it directed me, how do I write it? So then I talked to lots of other yarn stores around the country and I called vendors and I started to kind of get serious about the idea of it, just to see if it was really something I could do.
This already is what separates most people, is you usually have an idea and then the next step's kind of arduous. Like,
Yeah.
I got to write a business plan. I
Yeah.
got to learn something to do
Yeah.
the thing. Ew.
Yeah.
But that shows kind of the gumption that you have because you're like, okay, I'll do it. I'll
Mhm.
learn it. I'll do the things. Because business and business operations, sales, you
Yeah.
probably slayed at.
Yeah.
But this was all brand new.
Yeah, I'm not a wait arounder. It's never been something I
Can
do.
see that.
Yeah, one day I had a brand new baby at home and we had old crappy furniture and he came home one day and I said, we need to upgrade this furniture. And he was like, I suppose we're going right now. And I was like, yeah, we're going right now. So that
And by
I'm
soon,
just-
I mean now.
yeah. So I'm not a wait arounder. I make quick decisions
Mm.
based on my gut and research and
Yeah.
I don't doubt myself very often. So yeah, I wrote a business plan and my friend who is a graphic artist did the logos that I could put in the business plan, and my banker friend, and all these women that had met who were entrepreneurs themselves, all of a sudden I was like, well, why can't I? Of course I
Yeah.
can do this. All of them
Yeah.
did this,
Yeah.
So by the time, so I wrote a business plan, brought it to a bank.
Was it the
And
same banker that
They
you
gave
had
me a
known?
loan. It was. Yep.
And they gave you a loan?
Yeah, they gave me a loan in
Boom.
2009 in the recession. Now, I would.
Lord have mercy. That is an exception to the rule. You're brand new to the business.
I was not messing around.
I want to meet
No.
this banker.
I was not messing around. Yeah. So, well, we didn't get it for free.
No,
certainly.
of course,
Yes.
no.
I would go home after talking to her and, I would say to Jason, so what do you think the jet ski's worth? Or whatever. He would say, I don't know, $4,000. And he would go in the office and find out the documents. And, one day I said to him, so, I asked if we might need a little more collateral, and I asked if I could put my engagement ring up as collateral. And they said I could, but they had to keep it for the term of the loan. Is that something you'd be okay with? Well, yeah, you can do that if you want to do that. I'm like, why are you letting me do this?
Here's my wedding ring. Like, they held your collateral?
Well, I didn't end up having to.
But the fact that you were willing and your husband's like, ship shape, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly believed in me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure necessarily that he believed that, that it would work.
Yeah.
And his his line is, "What's the worst that can happen?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, they could take our house. That's the worst that can happen." He's like, "They're never going to do that. They're never going to do that. They're gonna, let's just imagine. So you get this loan, you buy all this stuff, nobody buys anything. And then what do? Well, you got to sell all the stuff. So you have a big sale, you sell all the stuff, you pay off part of the loan, and then you go get a job and we pay off the rest of the loan.
Wow.
They're never going to take our house.
I
Like he
love
just
that
is,
attitude.
yeah.
Like there's a where that's and my
Hmm.
husband said to me as an entrepreneur, there's a chance we'll lose everything and live in a van down by the,
Yeah.
the river. And I was like, okay, I think that sounds like fun. Like you just are so excited about what you
Yeah.
believe in. And like you said, your gut.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just believed it would work. Yeah, I believed it would work. I am for sure a glass half full girl.
Yes, I
I
can see
believe
that.
in it, and it's just my nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2009 recession, you
Yeah.
open your doors.
Yeah.
What's the reception from the community?
Before we even opened, people were in the doors. The
Wow.
first, when I put a sign up that said "darn knit," it had the word knit in it, and that was all it took. People were like, can we buy? Like I was, my nanny Jean, of course, was still alive at the time, so she was
Oh,
in there.
she saw you
Yeah,
open it.
yes, she
Oh, I
was
love
stocking
that.
yarn and all sorts of stuff, and so people came in and were excited about it, and yeah, and we're like, we don't even have a cash register yet. Well, can I just give you cash? Like people were really
Yes, please.
excited. Yeah, really excited.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so from a non-knitter, and I want to learn how this business has changed over the years,
Yeah.
but is there a perception now, or was it then that that was just for old ladies? Like, what do people perceive?
I think it still kind of is a perception that
Okay.
it is. It's definitely not. I mean, our main customer base is probably 40 to 60, 40 to 65,
And has
you
that
know.
evolved? Because I feel like I didn't hear that much about knitting.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, like a lot. And I don't know if that was in the last 5 years.
Certainly it was. I think it has been for
Okay.
sure. I think with Instagram and social media,
Mm,
younger people are paying more attention to it. They want to show things off
yeah.
so I think for sure with social media and then COVID, honestly, people were stuck at home
Yeah.
and, needed something to do. And so they bought from us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our customers just kept us going. They would just give me cat. Like they just wanted us to stay.
To stay open. Mhm.
Yeah. They would, buy gift cards and,
Yeah, they wanted you. So let's talk about that ballsy little move that you made.
Yeah.
So you are operating, darn it, successful. People are there,
yeah.
and there's a space that's open next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And this, what year did you expand?
We've just been a year. It's just been a year.
Just a year.
Mhm.
So just after COVID, we're all like licking our wounds, trying to
Mhm.
recover, and you're like, did you triple your space?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't worry about it. I'm
Yeah.
just going to triple my business space. Huge venture to just
Yeah.
add a lounge.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that idea? And then how did you pull the trigger? Like,
Sure.
how did that
So
make sense?
my cousin Carly runs the store with me.
Okay.
She is from the same nanny Jean, has the same kind of optimistic attitude.
Okay.
And she has been with me since we opened the door. In fact, when I finally decided I was going to do it, I was going to yarn. And when I say finally, within 4 months of seeing the space, we
Yeah.
pretty much had a lease and we're in there. But when I decided I was going to do it, I went to my nanny Jean's house where Carly was, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to open this yarn store. Do you want to do it with me?" And she was like, "Sure." So
A lot of arm twisting,
so
sounds
she
like.
has been, she's been beside me the whole time. She's amazing. So part of the business, of course, is classes.
Mhm.
So we make money on classes,
Yeah.
and not only on tuition, but on supplies they want to make,
Sure.
buy and things like that. So classes is a big part of our business. And in COVID, that was gone. We did some kind of virtual Zoomy things,
Mhm.
but it's really a hands-on kind of
Yeah.
thing to learn.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, one day, and we have a classroom space,
Yeah.
and during COVID, that kind of classroom space was taken up with shipping and receiving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we kind of lost this classroom space, but people were kind of itching to come back.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how to make that work. And there was a little space upstairs in our building. And so we were like, should we take that space again, which we'd had at one point and gave up. And so I said, kind of jokingly to Carly, we should just knock a hole in the wall and go next door. And she said, we should totally do that.
And for people that don't know, it was a huge restaurant
Yeah.
next door.
Yes,
which-
it was. Yes,
Yeah.
it was the lovely Smalley's restaurant, which we loved so much. And
Mhm.
And then it was a few other things that
Yeah.
didn't make it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so luckily, the building owner, Mike McGuire, loves us and has loved us from the start. And it took some convincing. He was not, it's been a restaurant
Sure.
the whole time. And
Right.
he, you know, he's the one who crafted the building. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of his baby. And so it took a little bit to convince him that it could be something else.
Mm.
But we did. And yeah, we knocked a hole in the wall, and I can't imagine not having it now. It's
Wow.
just, yeah. So it's you know, it's a giant space with
You've
tables
got to
and
get in
chairs.
there.
Yeah, it's
If you
beautiful.
haven't yet, it's just exceptional.
Yeah, there's tables and chairs, and when the store is open, the lounge is open.
Wow.
Yeah. So we don't like rent it out
Yeah.
for events or anything, because our goal is to have it be a place where a customer can always come.
Yeah.
So
Well, like you said, it has become this community
yeah,
where people are sharing stories.
Mhm.
Just the two that you shared were so meaningful. And I would imagine it because you feel so helpless when people are going through stuff.
yeah,
Like, what can I do? And as Minnesotans, we're like, we'll bring you a casserole because
yeah.
that's all we got
You
up our
can't believe the
sleeve.
stories, honestly. It could be a whole.
book, probably. Yeah.
One woman came in whose mom passed away and had a sweater the mom was knitting, and the mom couldn't finish it. And so before she passed. And so we finished it for the daughter, and we decided not to wash it. Normally you would knit something and then wash it. It's called blocking. It's part of the process. And we chose not to because had her smell, you know.
Oh,
And so she came in, we had it all wrapped up, and called her and told her we were done. And she came in, and the first thing she did, I know. We have a million of those stories. It's
Mhm.
crazy. We have a Christmas stocking. A woman came in with a Christmas stocking with her son's name on it, and the son was transitioning.
Mm.
And so Carly took down the one name and put on the other name.
Oh,
And she came in, and Carly said, well, I used the same yarn. Well, it's the same person, you know.
yeah.
And it just, I know, it's just
Ah.
every day. I know.
Yeah.
Carly and I weep every day almost.
Yeah. Right, you do.
I know, really.
Those
We're
are
just so
stories about the heart.
lucky. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's just more than, you know, it's more than just a retail store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think even when you tell me about the foundations, you're just with a group of people networking. But that
Yeah.
that fuels an energy,
Yeah.
like-mindedness,
Yeah.
and people that are going to encourage you and start to get you thinking outside of the box. And when you're knitting
Yeah.
next to someone and maybe you're sharing stories, it just feels like a whole different, like a warm
Yeah.
hug from a group of people that understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell
it's
me,
great.
can you show me some of the things you make?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this was my nanny stocking. So this is my original nanny stocking.
Oh.
I am 50.
Oh,
So this is a 50-year-old
that's
stocking.
amazing.
But that's what they are. Yeah. So that's my
Wow.
original one, but we make them
Did
now at
she
the
make
shop.
this for you?
She did, yeah.
Oh,
So now Carly and I are the Christmas stocking knitters. So
I love
any
it.
new
Oh, you can
family
make,
member,
someone could call and say, can you?
No.
Oh, okay.
don't even ask,
Just
Sarah.
check.
We're not
Okay,
doing that.
okay. I'm just kidding about that.
But for, a new family member,
Mhm.
when somebody, and you can't get it if you're a boyfriend
Oh,
or a girlfriend. You have to be like married into the clan.
got it.
Yeah, there's no
So
messing
this is
around.
just for you have to have blood relation.
Well, you have to, you
Or
have to
marriage.
be committed
Yeah.
to the family.
Boyfriends don't count.
No. So,
That's sweet.
yeah. So Carly and I knit new stockings. It's a kind of a rite of passage. It's very
Oh.
fun. Yeah. So new babies come and they get a new stocking, and it
That's
feels
super
yeah, it
sweet.
feels like her, she's carrying on.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Although none of our kids are knitters yet.
Not so much.
We're not sure. This was a sweater my nanny made me too.
Wow.
Look at this thing.
That is so wonderful. That's like a classic ski sweater.
It's a ski
Oh, it's
sweater.
thick.
It's a ski sweater.
Okay.
I have knit or skied a total of a dozen times in my life, but she felt like I needed
Just
ski
you would look
sweater.
the part.
maybe. Yeah, so
like that. I
that's
like
very
it.
cool. Yeah, I don't remember asking for this,
No.
but
And
she
sometimes you don't.
she
You just
did
get
it.
them.
Yeah. And this is just a pretty shawl I made.
And this you
fun.
made you
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this is
Like
a-
it's so beyond me because
Yeah.
it looks like you've put circles in there.
Yeah, and then this is just a little baby sweater. I mean, there's
And that you
and we see people, many people start to knit again after if they have a new baby coming in
Yeah.
the family,
Yeah.
whether it's a new mom or a grandma.
yeah.
We see lots of them. And so they're like, there's a baby shower coming. I want to knit a whatever for my
Something.
new baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see lots of new moms and grandmas.
I
Yeah.
think that's so sweet. Now tell
Yeah.
me the different. Okay, is this crocheted? What is
Well,
this?
that is made by a machine.
Yes.
So
I mean, it was not made by me.
I'm
So,
not entirely sure
but with
what
this,
that
could
is.
you make something like?
You probably
Tell
would
me the
crochet that.
different, yeah, between
Mhm.
crocheting and
Crochet
knitting.
is one hook, so it's just one tool, and you make kind of a series of loops from one tool. Knitting is 2 sticks, so it's
It's a whole different something.
yeah, they
Yeah.
look different. They're
Yeah.
both beautiful. They both can make the same things,
Yeah.
basically. One just looks a little bit different than the other.
Okay.
There's no better way to start. You can start as a knitter or crocheter, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And we do beginning classes for both of those.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't really matter which you
Which you
start
do.
with.
Okay. Now I
Yeah.
feel really inspired.
Yeah.
Okay, I always like to wrap things up with a couple questions.
Sure.
Like, what do you think in your business life?
Mhm.
What was one of the most challenging things that you encountered that maybe either shut you down or made you doubt that you could continue, that you really had to fight through?
Sure. So, advice I would give, I know that's not the question, but I will get there, to a new retailer would be to hire a business consultant,
Mm.
a retail business consultant, somebody who actually knows some things, because I didn't know anything, nothing. I didn't know anything about taxes or payroll
Mm.
or how much inventory to carry and what an open to buy even was, or you know how fast I should turn my inventory, like all of those things.
Yeah.
I did not know. And so as important as my insurance agent was and as important as my banker was, that person should have been more important to me too. I should have budgeted in for a person like this. Honestly, I didn't even know there was a person who did
Mhm.
that, so I wouldn't have known. But that has been incredibly important to me. And I have found one now. I think like 2017, I hired a company that
Okay.
is helping me. And that's really when the business grew,
Mm.
when I could pay attention to, first of all, they encouraged me to hire more people so that I could have time to do other things
Yeah.
that grow
More
the business.
strategic.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's scary when you aren't making a lot of money,
Yeah.
to think that you could hire somebody else,
Mhm.
and that trust that the money will come
Yeah.
is scary.
Yeah.
But they, showed me all the real numbers and said, you can do this. And
Yeah.
so that was important, because at the time it was hard.
Mm.
It's real hard to open a business
Mhm.
and to make it work. Luckily, as you know, as I've told you, I have an amazingly supportive husband who had a great job, who helped us pay for things.
Yeah.
But it would have been hard going it alone
Yeah.
without
Oh,
that,
because
for sure.
you're often losing money and you're like, I'm
Yeah.
putting in all this effort and I'm losing money. So
Yeah.
this is a great business
Yeah,
idea.
and Stillwater is so funny because you think that there's so many people downtown.
Yeah.
These businesses must be rolling in it. Like they must sell so much stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the people are just flooding in. They're lined up to get into town. And then, that's just not how it works.
No.
You think it
No.
is, but it quickly becomes
Yeah.
reality. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I guess they don't just come in. You got to figure out how to,
Yeah.
yeah.
You make a point that I think we should come back to. In the start of your business is when you need a business consultant most. You know nothing. You
100%.
also fully believe you can't afford them.
Mhm.
And if I could do everything differently,
Mhm.
I would put a bigger budget in for that, or budget at all. It
Yes.
wasn't until later, where you've already suffered and struggled, that you can then afford them. And then you're like, oh my God, if I would have done this right away. So
Yes.
your point is
Yes, and
really important.
honestly, when I found them, they're called Retail Mavens, by the way, and they're amazing. But when I found them, I couldn't afford them.
Mm.
Like I literally couldn't
Mhm.
afford it,
Mhm.
and I just thought, well, it's just this or
Yeah.
or not,
Yeah.
And so I took the plunge and did it, and it has been just
Enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I had support from them during COVID, and
Yeah.
again, I get to talk to entrepreneurs every week,
Yeah.
this group of women, and mainly women,
Yeah.
who I get to talk to and get encouragement from and support from every
Mm.
week. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
important.
did they help you through a specific hard time, or you just think in general?
I think in general, I think in general, yes, they were supportive. I don't know that I can pinpoint a specific moment, um, specifically, I guess.
Okay. Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah.
And then
It's all hard.
it's all hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
all
think
hard.
like legitimately,
Yes, I joke that my kids are going to remember me. And I did. I'm very, I get to write my own hours to
yep.
some degree.
Yep.
And, but I do joke that my kids see me, at our kitchen table on my laptop. Like they come out in the morning and then they go back in at night. And I'm like, here I
You're
am.
still there
Yep, yeah,
working away.
right. Yeah.
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 It's a hustle, but if you enjoy it, it's very meaningful.
I
And
do. And
yeah.
I open the door and turn on the light still and just love it. Like I
Yeah.
just feel joy in there.
Yeah.
I just feel so lucky to
Yeah.
have it.
You can tell.
Yeah. I just feel
It,
so lucky.
you can tell when you walk in the store.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the last thing for people that this wasn't even really in your horizon, but you had like this passion from experience before, what do you tell someone who has this idea of whatever sort?
Hmm.
They're not really doing anything with it. They're ruminating. What can you say to them to help them like maybe take that next step and go for it?
I don't know. First of all, I think you have to be a person who isn't a doubter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I hesitate to tell you that you can do it because not everybody can do it. It's
You have to
hard.
believe you can do it.
Yeah, you have to believe in it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of trust your gut. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a hard thing to kind of hone in on.
Yeah.
But once you start, and you get it. Like I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I get what that feeling is. Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
So if you're doubting and if you're negative, it'll probably carry
Be-
right into your business.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Negativity just does not help.
Yeah. So be positive or
Yeah.
just recognize maybe it's not for you if you are someone who doubts or worries or not
Yes.
worries because we all worry a little bit. But
Yeah, for sure. I tell people that in the store too who are knitting. And when you learn to knit, it is a big kind of learning curve.
yeah.
And you have to be willing to make mistakes.
Mm.
And there are people who just can't handle it. Like they cannot handle that they can't do it perfect, right.
Yeah.
Like I can't do it right. And then they rip it out and they cast on again. And then they can't do it right. And so they rip
Ugh.
it out and cast on again. And
I have anxiety listening.
yeah, and I will say to them,
Yeah.
if you can't see a mistake and let it be a mistake, you're not going to, this isn't your thing. Like it just
Oh.
isn't.
Mm.
Like if you can't just let it go and knit past it, like
Yeah.
knowing that this thing you're making, this like first thing you're making, you're not going to hand down generations.
Yeah.
You're just learning,
Yeah.
but you got to just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think kindergarten teachers that say, "Oh, you made a beautiful oops."
Yeah.
My kids still say that.
Yeah.
Look at my beautiful oops. I'm like, yes, that's nice. Like
Yeah.
you embrace it as part of the
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah. I mean, and if you wanted perfection, you'd buy it somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
You
I
wouldn't
love
make
that.
it yourself.
I'm inspired to knit, Amy.
Well, I'm
I
so
am.
glad.
And I'm going to be okay with my mistakes.
I think it's good for all of us.
Yeah.
I think it's a good lesson. And it does calm you down and
Yeah.
center you. And when you're learning, it's so hard. You have to focus so hard that really everything else in your worries,
Yeah. Yeah.
your mind doesn't have space for it because
It's
it's
meditational.
it is. It's very good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, knitting is for everyone.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
I have
It
loved
is.
chatting with you, Amy.
Yeah, it's
This
been a
has been
pleasure.
really cool. I would love for you guys, if you have not been to Darnit, and I don't usually plug a store, but when you hear her story and find out like Amy's, what did you call Nanny
Nanny Jean. Mm-hmm.
Nanny Jean.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty warm, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So check it out. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Hope
It
you
was an
guys
honor.
tune in next time to Chew the Fat.